I'm at a loss for words after watching that. It's one thing watching these space explorations on television and being amazed at the technology, but having the person here who was up there and watching your hair, if nothing else, you know how to steal a scene. As Micah said, this is the United States' 250th birthday coming up on July 4th. So this is the year that our country was created. And over the course of the last 250 years, one of the things that when I study history that I'm proudest of from the United States is our heritage of innovation and technology. And speaking of technology, I asked AI to help me a little bit with some of the innovations that the United States has brought to the world in the last 250 years. There's everything from the internet to powered flight to email to DNA structure in human genomes. There's Eli Whitney and the cotton gin. There's Alexander Graham Bell. There's Edison. And then there's our adventures in space. Where would you put the United States heritage of space exploration in that sort of arc of science from, about, or in collaboration with the world, but from the United States?
Yeah, I think space exploration is really the gem that culminates a lot of technology and is the forcing function for technology. So I think it's one of those things that we can be most proud of. And also associated with it, that is the collaboration that we have with other countries. As we leave our planet, of course, it just comes natural that we want to leave as human beings, and we are obviously in a lot of ways a leader in space, but that means being an integrator in space. It's not being the one who has all of the ideas, but just being able to provide the opportunities and the foundation for amazing ideas to happen because of space travel. When I talk about space with kids, what's different is you have to think outside the box. The problems are not solved the same as they are here on Earth, and it really is like a spurring of technology because of people having to think a little bit differently. And that allows us also to be, like I mentioned, the cooperation. So I can only imagine where the next 250 years is going to lead us. I think the imagination is really the only limit.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned talking to kids, because I know Micah earlier was talking about dreaming about walking on the moon when he was a kid. I was talking with Sunita earlier, saying that when you find those moments when you realize you and another person were somewhere else in the world doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. She and I, sorry, I'm going to admit to my age here, we're both sitting in primary school classrooms in 1969 watching a little television probably brought in by somebody's parent, because the schools didn't have TVs back in the 60s, folks. I'm sorry to tell you this. And there were no smartphones. And she and I, at the same time, were watching the landing on the moon. And I mean, it just chills down your spine when that happened. But tell me this. When did young Sunita first think, I want to do that?
Well, I was, again, watching on the black and white TV, which you, by the way, for the young guys out there, you have to go up to the TV and turn the channel, right? There's no remote control. So, of course, our parents probably made us do that, right? Instead of
I was the remote control in our house.
Remote control, right. And so, I saw that and I thought, wow, that is really amazing. That is great. That is cool. But I would never be doing anything like that. And for me, my perspective as a child was more the fun shows that came out of that, right? Lost in Space or Star Trek. I'm a Trekkie, not a Star Wars guy, by the way. I don't know. I know this is always a controversy with a lot of people, but I'm a Trekkie and watched in the beginning when William Shatner, a long time ago, and just sort of looked at it from that perspective. I, focused on school. I was a student athlete. Never really thought about going to space. My father was a doctor. My mother really loved animals, so obviously I was a little bit of a people pleaser back then, so I wanted to be a veterinarian, and also I really wanted to be a veterinarian. I love animals. I was looking for schools that maybe would support that when I was graduating from college, and honestly, I didn't know the path. I just thought I had to go there, and I didn't get into that specific school. And my brother recommended the military to me, just sort of offhand. He said, "You like camping? You like going into the military? It'll be fine." And so that's how I ended up being in the military. And then it wasn't until later, after I flew, after I was part of a team, after I was an aircraft commander, after I got into test pilot school and went to test pilot school, when I had the opportunity to meet an astronaut and go down to Johnson Space Center and realize that we're going to go back to the moon again, because they had to practice on vertical landing for going back to the moon, and I'm a helicopter pilot. So I was like, oh, this is hand in hand. Maybe I need to research what I need to do. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to come here to talk to students and talk to kids, because I'm just like them. And they don't have to have all the answers at 17 and try to know what they're going to do. They can research their way through life, find what is good and what they are passionate about, and then they'll become good at it. And I was a pretty good helicopter pilot because I loved it. I loved testing aircraft, and like I mentioned, that was the first time when I was a tester that I had the opportunity to even think about going to space.
So I'm going to go off script here. You mentioned that you enjoyed sports. Can you share with the group what you did to kill some of the time on the space station?
Yeah, so as you can see, there's some workout equipment up on the space station. On my first flight, I was lamenting a little bit because I had run the Houston Marathon and I qualified for the Boston Marathon, which is sort of the top jewel of marathons in the United States, and I really wanted to run it. And by the way, I heard the Mumbai Marathon was just this last weekend. Anybody run it? Probably because you think it's terrible, and marathons are terrible, and I agree with all of that. And so when I was lamenting a little bit about that, I was like, well, I could run it on the space station as a joke to my sister, and she said, why don't you run it? And I said, why don't you take my number and you run it on the ground? And so we ended up both of us doing it. She ran it on the ground, and I ran it in space strapped to the treadmill, which again was a little bit horrible. But again, something that I wanted to sort of emphasize a little bit about health. Even astronauts up in space are concerned about their health, and I wanted to project that to kids here on Earth. It's something that we should all be thinking about, not worried about, but thinking about on a daily basis, and providing a routine that helped me with time management and helped me go and do the things that I got to do later in life.
And you should talk with Micah, ultra marathoner over there. He does these bizarre going off to the mountains and running 70-kilometer races.
Okay, that's even crazier.
Yes. So you mentioned earlier when we were looking at some of those beautiful images that the Earth is indeed round. But as you were looking back from space on Earth, did that in any way change your perspective on who we are? Just in general?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, one of the first things you do, I think, when you get to space, I think everybody does this. I might be talking out of turn, but I think we all want to look for our home, like our immediate home. Like I grew up in Massachusetts. My father's from India. My mother's from Slovenia. So I'm obviously looking for these places to call home. And that's your first objective. Over time, as you're up there for a little while, you know where those places are, and then I was sort of quizzing myself. I would never look at the map. I would just go to the window and say, like, guess what continent this is? And I was getting better and better at it. I think that phase 3, though, was really looking at the planet as one planet. Our planet is alive. Some people think there's just rocks out there, but it's moving. I couldn't see those specific movements, but I could see the atmosphere. I could see the interaction. I could see the seasons. I could see the changes in the ocean colors with algae blooms, for example, or seeing ice formations in the high northern hemisphere or down near Antarctica. You can see all of this planet which is connected. And you think to yourself, of course, the air and the water are connected. And then you think to yourself, for me, it was like, oh my God, every person I know is there. Every animal, every plant, everything we know is there. And we're all on this one, they call it a little spaceship in our solar system. And, I think it changes your perception about us having any differences. It really makes you feel like we are just one, and we all should probably work a little bit closer and easier together. And it actually sort of made me feel like, why would anybody argue about anything? I know, I'm married, I have a husband, we argue, so I understand arguments, but the reality of it is like, why? It seems so silly when you look at Earth from that perspective.
That's a great insight. And I loved in the first image of the rockets from 3 different countries heading up and seeing the collaboration of having astronauts from various cultures, various countries, they're collaborating. We're now seeing the private sector increasingly engaging in space exploration and the technology. Any thoughts on the collaboration between, say, private sector and government sector?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in this business long enough to have doubts from the beginning, right? We had our first space tourist, Dennis Tito, coming to the International Space Station. Everybody was up in arms, like, oh boy, he might press the wrong button, something bad might happen, all this kind of stuff was going on. And yes, the space station is not made like a hotel. It is made like a laboratory. So there are some dangerous things there, but we can train people. We're smart. Human beings are smart. And that, has now grown all the way to we are ready to have commercial LEO destinations. Commercialization of space is great. And what it means in the United States, at least, is, I don't have knowledge all over the world, but in the United States is there are opportunities for people to work in so many different companies. So not only rockets, not only spacecraft, but parts of space experiments, satellites, new technologies, 3D printing of metals, wherever anybody wants to work. It's not unusual nowadays that we have people who have STEM backgrounds, go to one company for a couple of years, then go to another company, and then go to another company. And just like us here today, they can contrast and compare different technologies and different methods and different processes these companies are going through, and they can work better as they're with all of their education and their experience. I think it's awesome. I think it is great. I think there's more opportunity in the future. I'm excited for the space station, having laid that groundwork, that foundation of technologies that we did up there, as commercial companies turn some of that into production, potentially for pharmaceuticals, new tech demonstrations for new spacecraft, looking at new spacesuits. All of that is all on the horizon because of this commercialization of space.
Okay, we just have time for one quick one before we go to some Q&A. And I'm going to talk slowly so you get a chance to swig some water there. I saw you out there doing a spacewalk, doing some repairs. What was I know that it was a tough nut to crack on how to get back to Earth. Then that was more of I assume from your side, an intellectual tough nut to crack. What was the most challenging task that you had to do while in space?
Oh, wow. So without a doubt, on my first spacewalk, the one that gave me the most angst, I'll say, is the first thing was the box. I didn't get to talk about everything that we did. That's pretty easy. It's a couple nuts and bolts, boom, boom, undo it, put a new one in, put it up, put it back on there. The second task was, and that box was probably about this big. The second task was a piece of equipment about this big. It's a reflector to allow the Dragon spacecraft to interrogate and come and dock to the space station. Apparently there was some residue from one of the thrusters on top of those thrusters, so my task was to take a new reflector, take that one off, and put the new one on. Seems easy. 3 bolts, undo them, get it off, put the new one on. However, the place where that reflector was, my head was about 6 inches from the spacecraft that was going to bring us home. So already I don't have a spacecraft to bring us home because Starliner had a problem. Now my head is right next to the one that is supposed to bring us home, and if I bonk my head into it, I sort of wreck that spacecraft. So the whole time I'm working, I'm sort of tilting my head, because remember, when you're in the spacesuit, your head is much bigger because of not because of how good you are, but just because of your helmet is sitting on top of your head. So the whole time I'm leaning. First of all, just to get to that position, I had to take some extra time, because usually I hold on to some type of bar and I could move myself back and forth, but none of that was applicable for this situation. And then you're there and you're trying to work sort of underneath the edge of the spacecraft. And so the whole time I was sort of leaning like this, and I had such a cramp in my shoulder because I sort of had to lean back for about an hour and a half to be able to do this simple task. But not a hard task, but the consequences were so big. Is one of those things that just it's mentally tough to go through that and just continually tell yourself, don't rush, don't rush, don't rush. Everybody likes to get your work done fast and get it over with, get back inside of the spacecraft, but that one is probably the toughest.
And here I was thinking changing a wheel on a snowy night in Northern Virginia was a tough one. There was no danger of me bumping the car and having it dismantle itself.
It's all about the consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're going to move now to some Q&A. What I'll ask, I think we've got one microphone here, two microphones. What I'll ask is if you raise your hand, we don't have a lot of time, so if you could tell us who you are. You're not allowed to give a speech. Who you are, and then a quick question, hopefully something that has more than a yes or no answer. Okay. Who's going to choose? We have one in the front.
Thank you so much. I got some basic question. They say that space station has started becoming dirty because of the hygiene issues. It has been in use for so many time. And now you got a first medical emergency which has happened from the space station. Do you think that there is a logic behind saying that there are certain medical issues which could happen because of overusage of a space station?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know exactly all the details of the medical emergency. I just know that somebody wasn't feeling so good, so the best thing to do with the Soyuz crew up there is to bring the folks back home to do some extra analysis. I don't know exactly. But hygiene has been a big deal for a long periods of time. And both, the US OS, as we say, the operating system, our Canadian, Japanese, and European partners, and the U.S. have been working on our side, how we would do hygiene a little bit better with new materials, actually, that are coming out. The Russian side also, they've put up different types of panels to hopefully prevent any hygiene problems, which we have had in the past. And we have had cleaning materials up there that we can clean. So I don't know if one correlates exactly to the other. I don't know the details of that, but I know that there's ongoing efforts. And another technology that we need to figure out a little bit better. Think about these Artemis 2 astronauts. There'll be 4 of them in one capsule for 10 days in close proximity for exercise, for hygiene, for food, for using the bathroom as well. So this is another field that we can only get better and better and to prevent something like medical emergency.
Hi, Jayashri Nandi from Hindustan Times. I write for Hindustan Times. I wanted to ask, when you were up there and waiting for the vehicle to bring you all back, what kind of mental capabilities do you think helped you go through those months? And what was the most challenging period for you as an astronaut?
Yeah, I think I'm one of these people who's a doer, right? So I can't sit still. And there was a little bit of time, but we did have things to do anyway. So in the meantime, I like to fill my time. I knew that there was like 12 and then 9 people up there, more than usual, which meant we were going through a lot of food. We were going through a lot of toilet materials as well. So somebody has to restock the food. Someone has to do the toilet maintenance. And so I hadn't been trained on all the experiments, but I had been before lived on the space station, so very well familiar with those basic activities. So not the most glamorous, but right away, raise your hand. Hey, I'll do that. I will occupy my time in helping the bigger picture, the team, the collaboration, to make sure that the people who are doing the science experiments can do them without ever thinking about this other stuff. So that's my method. Sunita Williams, everybody has their own ways of dealing with things. And I think the hardest part was really not knowing. So I think that's the hardest part of everything in life, right? Not knowing something and us not trying to be patient and waiting for the decision to decide whether or not we were going to fly back on the Starliner or we were going to wait. Once that decision was made, we knew we were there for 6 more months because spacecraft are expensive. We're on a regular rotation, and we knew we would be coming back with the next crew.
I think we have a microphone all the way in the back.
Hi, I'm a researcher in outer space policy. My name is Dr. Martin Jha. I have a question that climate critics often, criticize that the lot of emissions that come out from rockets is actually polluting the Earth. So on the question of, gelling the climate sustainability with space sustainability, because space is also, global commons, how do you see this question?
That's a great question, and I think, I don't know all the numbers, honestly, for that either. Rockets are big. My sister's impression when I asked her about what it looked like when we launched to space on my first mission on a shuttle, she said, there's a lot of fire. It was nighttime, so she was impressed. And so there is a lot of, chemicals that are burning, as the rocket engines are going. So yes, that is a factor. We do need to think about that. We need to think about potentially cleaner propulsion. And I think that is another aspect of space exploration that we need to look into as we're getting ready to leave low Earth orbit with big rockets. So, I mean, there's so much to do. When I was a kid, I thought everything was invented and discovered. Oh my gosh, how wrong I was. So there's lots to do.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt. I'm the Director General of the Indian Space Association, primarily dealing with private space. And I want to tell you, and it brings out the emotion in India when you were up there. One day I got a call. It was 1 month and you were there, not come on the scheduled time. And I get a call from an old granny up in the Himalayas. She hardly knows anything about space. And he says, well, Sunita Williams is there. Is she coming back and when? I said, don't worry, she will. And the next thing to me was, why don't you tell ISRO to send a spacecraft? So this is basically reflects the emotion which was there in far corners of India for you who represent the world for us there, and of course India and Nari Shakti. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You know, like I mentioned when I first stood up here, it's really humbling to be here in India, and I really wanted to come here. I'm going to a book festival, literary festival, which is really important to me, but I wanted to come to Delhi just to express my thanks to so many people who were praying for me and my crewmate, Butch Wilmore, to get back safely. And it's understated to say thank you, honestly, because I think my biggest impression, which I mentioned earlier today, is like people are nice, people are good, and we forget that sometimes by the distractions of life, because we argue about, you know, this or that, religion, politics, blah blah blah, but we're all people, and we care about each other, and that was like one of my biggest lessons learned. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. I think we have one just here.
Deepak Maheshwari, Senior Policy Advisor for Center for Social and Economic Progress. So my question is, when you were up there for such a long time, what type of variations did you bring about in your own daily routine, whether in terms of food or exercise or other things? I mean, we did see, of course, you doing exercise just now, even in the video, but beyond that also, what type of things? And do you have any plans to publish any sort of a diary or something like that, your space diary?
I did write a journal while I was up there. It's one of the things that I did on a weekly basis, but it wasn't just one day. For a week, as any journalist here in the room knows, when you're writing a story, right, you have to get all the data. So every week I would take pictures of my crewmates inside of the space station, because my crewmates took some amazing pictures of outside of the space station. The ones that you saw here were primarily from my crewmates, because they were really good photographers. So I thought my mission is I'm going to take action pictures of what we're doing and try to understand all of the experiments and write about it. And I wrote a journal every week on what we were doing up there. Potentially I might put that all together. I really wanted to bring it up, though, because I read a couple not too long ago, and they're pretty good. I will say so myself. But the reason I say that is because I had that time. I had that focus. I was not distracted by things. I don't think I could write like that today on Earth. I wasn't distracted by all of these things in life that are going on, and it really allowed me to do some quality work. And I also put that back on the crowd and anybody else who's listening. If you can at one point in time stop with all the distractions of life, put the phone down, and just really concentrate on what you're doing, I think you'll be surprised how much us humans can do.
And I'll come right to you in just a second. One quick question that popped into my mind during that long time on the space station. I saw the birthday cakes. I saw the Thanksgiving meal that you had. What meal were you craving that you wanted to have when you got back to planet Earth?
Okay, yeah. So not Indian food, only because it was sent to me. I was asking about it, like, man, I wish I had some Indian food, because my prior missions I had Indian food. And lo and behold, one of the spacecraft came up with a couple boxes of beautifully colored Indian food. I know some of you are like, oh, you're eating Indian food out of a bag. That's terrible. I know it's not the way my mother would have cooked it, but it was still pretty good. And I got to share that with my friends, which was great. But what I did really crave was a good bread. My husband makes fresh bread. And so when I came back, and one of the things my father always ate as he was crossing the ocean on, I think it was the QE2, didn't know what to eat as a vegetarian, so he started to eat cheese. So when he came to America, one of his go-tos was grilled cheese, because he was like, I don't know what these Americans are eating. I think I'll just stick with my cheese. And so sort of as an ode to him, as well as I just love grilled cheese. With my husband's fresh bread, my first meal back was a grilled cheese.
I'm just going to say, now that you're not a government employee, that Zomato sponsorship for a delivery of an Indian meal, just going to say, there might be a future in that. There was somebody just over here. Yes, sir.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you. I'm Shakti Kumar, founder and CEO of Orbital. Orbital is actually, we are the first Indian company working on RPO, life extension for the satellites. Especially we are working on RPO and docking and all those things. The debris is actually a major problem in that space ecosystem. So you are, and in this video also, you are enjoying capturing the debris actually. So when you capturing the debris, what are the technical challenges you faced? And another one is when you are docking with the space station, your crew missions. So what are the technical challenges or other alignment problem you faced it?
Right, this is a good question. I mean, this is I think something in the future that we really need to look at. We have a lot of space debris up in orbit around the planet. Some other pictures that I have, you can actually see Starlink satellites crossing our orbit. This is new in the last 10 years. There's a lot of space debris up there. So this is a field, actually the company who created those arms is a small company out of Michigan, two brothers and another friend who got together and used their aerospace experience from other companies, came back together to work together to propose that experiment. That is getting proposed, further in the Space Force because it is a problem. So we do need to figure out how to clean up space debris. This could be one way to do it, by maybe pushing satellites, by maybe changing their orbits so they don't decay as quick. There's a bunch of different ways to solve that problem too. It's just waiting for someone to solve it. So it's a good business to be in. And secondly, when you're docking to a space station, right, there's a number of different ways to do that. You can have an interrogation system where I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. You can have it all manually, like somebody's eye is on it with like a periscope. Or you can have what we had was a vision system. But then you need to make sure lighting is good for the vision system, and that reflector that I was telling you about for a Dragon capsule. So there's a bunch of different ways to skin these cats. They're all getting tested on the space station. The space station is a test bed for all of these new technologies also. So there's so much going on. Another great field.
Hello, Sunita. I'm another Sunita from planet Earth. I am a professor of robotics and autonomous systems and mechanical aerospace engineer. I just want to know, you were playing with many robots inside and outside the spacecraft. If there is any emergency, healthcare emergency, would you advise me on the challenges that I should be aware of if I have to make medical robots for space?
Wow, that's an interesting challenge. And I think the biggest thing with robots is we have to perfect their repetitive tasks. I think that is the first and foremost. So whatever they can do, if you can have robots that can use hands, and I know that there are some out there. I saw one on a 60-minute special from, I think, Boston Dynamics or Boston. There's some a company who's out there doing that. That's an interesting task. Things with hands is hard. Things with vision is also something that's becoming more and more real and used, but something with hands is really difficult. So I was thinking to myself, would I design then a tool that was more specified to that robot versus a hand, that a robot can actually manipulate a little bit better than having to simulate, the robot simulate a hand. So I think when you come to medical procedures, you want something that can do something as much as the hand can do, but it might be a different solution.
Good afternoon, Sunita. Here. Yeah. My name is...
I think this gentleman was waiting first. We're going to let him go.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Dr. Dev from a startup called Galaxy. We are launching the world's first satellite, which will have SAR and optical, both the sensors. But my question is mainly on the mental health. So we, Earth, the people who live on Earth, we generally have a mental health issue nowadays. It is becoming more and more common. My wife going shopping, a lot of shopping, my kid not passing the IIT exam, my father not allowing me for late night parties, and we go into depression, right? How you handled your mental health and kept yourself positive?
Right, that's a good question. We do talk to a flight surgeon. Our flight surgeon, we're assigned a flight surgeon. We have a relationship with that person. So we talk to a flight surgeon once a week. We actually talk to a psychiatrist, psychological support every 2 weeks, and just to check in, and they can actually tell apparently over time and trending if there's something that's going on. And that way, at least you have someone to vent to and talk to. That's a little bit different than the people that you have to live with on a daily basis, right? And then I think another part of their task is to just sort of get a feel for what the astronauts are thinking. I could talk to my friends and my family. We could have video conferences, and that is really wonderful and convenient, and really makes life go by without feeling like you're missing everything on Earth. One thing I did miss is my dogs while I was up there, because I'm not really having a conversation with them. And lo and behold, somebody said, I know, I'm going to 3D print Sunny some copy of her dogs. And I opened up a package from one of these spacecraft that brought up my Indian food, and there out pops my 2 dogs floating. And what a neat little surprise, right? So people back on Earth are also thinking about folks back up in space. Now, this is not going to be as easy as we go, back to the moon or even on to Mars. So we're going to have to think of some other psychological ways to work with folks. It just might be some types of communications, but it won't be as rigorous as it is in the space station. So I think I had it easy. We're going to have to work on that as well. There's so many things to do.
Good afternoon, Astronaut Williams. My name is Kunal. I represent Press Trust of India. Before I ask my question, just one line of preface I want to give that I was just checking NASA website about the latest number in the coalition of Artemis Accord. And I think it's now 60 with Poland joining the list. India joined, I think, in 2023. And that's a civil exploration coalition. But the private sector that the gentleman asked you, that number is growing. We have SpaceX, Virgin Atlantic. Do you feel that with this growing number of players in the private sector in space, that could actually lead to a space race, and that it won't just be in the realm of science fiction, but actually science reality? And if you permit me just one small question, what is it that Sunita Williams is afraid of, having conquered the space?
I'm still afraid of a lot of things. Where I live, there are some bears. I'm a little bit afraid of waking one of them up. They're sleeping right now. I think that's good. So you have to know your place in the universe and in the Earth, and be careful respectful of the animals that are around you. A space race. I mean, I think there is a space race going on. I think people have talked about that. There is. We want to get back to the moon. We want to get back to the moon sustainably. We want to get back to the moon to sort of start the conversation about rules of engagement and how we actually work on the moon, how we work together with other countries on the moon. So yes, there is a race to ensure that we do this in a productive, democratic way, just like Antarctica. I mean, it's the same type of thing. We want to get back to the moon so we can all be there at the same time and working together.